Hello, my name is Kyla Manenti and you are listening to another episode of Lunar Poetry Shorts. I'm joined by Selina Nwulu.
Hello.
And in true Lunar tradition, we're going to start with a poem.
Okay, so this is called Encyclopaedia. He thinks me an encyclopedia, scrapes his fingers through the depths of my chapters and tries to rip my binding so he can separate and hang up my pages, searching for proof of my sadness. He will not stop until every line has been conquered, will not rest till all words have been crushed into their vowels. He thinks me an encyclopedia, and then wonders why I have become a closed book.
Great. So, hello.
Hi.
And my first question is, why poetry?
So I think for me, something I really appreciated growing up is that my sisters, I've got 4 older sisters, and they always told me to write or told me to create something. So it might have been a short story or a poem. And so for me, I'm just really comfortable with doing that. I think for me, the transition has been doing that more publicly, but I've not been so afraid of it as with other people that I've spoken to who associate poetry with school or something really quite disconnected from their everyday life. I see it as really an outlet for me to express myself. So yeah, I think that's how poetry has become really important to me, really.
And how often do you read your poetry in public?
So I guess maybe a few times a month, but I'm writing a lot more, so I'm performing a bit less. But I hope to get back into it again towards the end of the year.
Cool. And have you had anything published?
So yes, I've been published in a few magazines and publications, and I have a collection coming out this summer, which will be a chapbook collection, which I'm really looking forward to sharing with everybody. Hopefully people will like it. So yeah, I've been published here and there.
And who's publishing the collection?
It's Burning Eye Books.
Very cool. Excellent.
Yeah.
And I've spotted you in Lunar Poetry magazine, actually.
Yeah.
I've come across you. So you're familiar with Lunar Poetry.
Cool.
That's very good.
Thank you.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Are you up for reading us another poem?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll give a little intro to this. So my family are from Nigeria, and so I often think about who I would have been if my parents hadn't decided to come here. And so this is kind of what I'm thinking about in this poem, which is called Two Sides of a Coin. There is a girl who looks like me, walking through the streets of Lagos. She is freshly plucked mangoes and forehead beads of sweat. She is flat shoes and a head wrap on Sundays. She is a collision of patterns chasing each other. She looks like me, but her vowel sounds have shrunk. There are no Yorkshire undertones here. Instead, she speaks in half songs, rolls Igbo off her tongue like blooming hibiscus, and wears her ancestors' sayings on her chest like armour. She weaves through this downtown scene in fluid choreography. The joke thrown to a passing neighbour, the pause and smell of the pile of peppers in the market. Each act has a home in this moving composition. You can see her belonging in the sway of her hips. If you look closely enough, you can see how her shoulders sigh like mine, can hear her life in the drag of her flat feet, and feel their tendency to wonder. We both laugh with the weight and depth of a church bell. On a good day, it will throw our heads back. Sometimes, I see these two versions of myself like two sides of a coin. Heads here, tails over there. I wonder why the coin landed on this side. I wonder which version would have laughed the most.
That's great. I definitely agree with the church bell.
Exactly right.
I think I might have just seen your head throw back a little bit then as well.
I'm glad you made that connection.
Oh yeah, all the rest I was like, what is this about? And I was like, yes, church bell. So let's talk about your critiquing process. Do you have people that you share your writing with, or do you look for feedback from audiences?
I don't know. I think I share it with people more than look for feedback from audiences. I mean, it's great to get feedback from audiences, but I feel like open mic and performing is often quick and dirty. You're on for like 10, 15, 20 minutes. It's not necessarily the kind of in-depth critique that they can give you, and that's fair enough. That's not necessarily what they're there for. They're there to kind of just appreciate you in that moment. Whereas the writing process is a bit more methodical, and so that's when I would send it to a few people to look over and for their honest kind of feedback. And I think there's also something about doing poetry that links in with activism and politics, which I try and do sometimes, and so to get a different perspective feels a lot more important than if I was writing a poem about love or something, which is still, still want feedback on that, but I just feel like that's more of a personal thing, whereas something with a bigger context is something I really seek wider feedback about.
And how would you like to see your writing progress? I mean, I know you've got the book coming out, but would you look to do shows, like Edinburgh, or?
Yeah, I think I for the most part want to publish books. I'd love to be surrounded by my own books, if that's not a narcissistic thing to say.
Well, if you don't sell enough copies of the next one, you might be.
I'm fully expecting it to be like propping up the table and yeah, all that. I'm prepared. I've prepared myself for that. But I would like to keep on writing books. So that I think that I've realised that that's my kind of priority. But there's also something about performing that I'd like to explore, and I think next year I'm going to work on, I don't know, one-woman show. Sounds quite grand, doesn't it?
Wow.
But, yeah, something like that. I think that's something I'd quite like to explore. And if I do it, if that goes well, then maybe see where that goes, or if I decide I don't like it, then that's fair enough. But I guess it's all about trying it out.
Next stop, the moon.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to have our third and final poem from you now.
Okay.
If that's cool with you.
Yeah. So this is called Be Silent. As Egypt shook, I checked the mirror for love handles, flicked through its featured howls in a magazine, fists punching through pixels, framed through coffee mug smears. Newspapers gave me pictures of Palestine folding in on itself, fleeing from love lost. Crumpled civilians dodged my doodles and idle to-do lists. As my remote switched on Syria, I checked my stomach in the TV's reflection, sucked in cheekbones and imagined myself downsized, the glare of machine guns in the background. The world spins off its axis. I misunderstand as I overtweeze. I hear my heart beat louder than theirs, until I forget even having remembered.
You say that was a bit more political,
wasn't it? Yeah, I thought I'd drop that in.
Dipped into the politics.
Indeed.
What have been your main influences as a writer and a performer?
Yeah, that's interesting. So I think when I started writing when I was younger, it was just what was going on for me. And I think that ties into the collection, actually, because it's called The Secrets I Let Slip. And there's something about just... I write poetry almost as if it was like a diary entry. So it was very, very personal to me, and it wasn't necessarily related to anything external. Whereas in making the transition to performing more openly and writing more openly, I feel like it's much more influenced by politics and by the news, and also the links between the personal and the political. So writing a poem about being unemployed, for example, is very personal, but I'm linking that to the bigger context of youth unemployment, which was very present when I was unemployed. So I'd say a mixture of things, really, but I'd say that the biggest influence is global protest and politics and social justice as well. I'd say they were kind of my big factors.
And finally, what would you recommend to our listeners to go out and see or read or watch?
I think that there's so much out there, actually, that I don't want to be London-centric, but because I'm in London, I know London a bit more, and you can see something every day. it's a really exciting time. So I think the Free Word Centre is doing quite a lot of interesting stuff around climate change and poetry, and that's really exciting. I'd also say that the Albany and Shoreditch Town Hall Theatre are doing some really interesting spoken word plays, which I'd really recommend keeping an eye on. I just saw a writer, a poet playwright called Selina Thompson at the Albany, and she did her play called Chewing the Fat, which was about a personal play about like overeating, but it was really conversational and humorous. And so yeah, I'd definitely, I think she's going to do some great things, brilliant things, beyond what she's doing already. But yeah, I think there's lots of things going on. I think Apples and Snakes as well, they're really bringing quite a few cool poets and stuff, so it's worth subscribing to their mailing list. I could go on, but I think, yeah, just lots of good things to look out for, I think.
Cool. Well, thank you for talking to me.
Thank you.
And I hope everyone has enjoyed listening to this. Don't forget to check in for more Lunar Poetry Shorts. And I will talk to you guys sometime very soon, hopefully.